Welcome to the Thursday, August 23rd, 2018 podcast for Happy Tales Naturals. I'm your host, JT, and what I'd like to discuss today is why moisture is important in our pets' food. What a lot of people don't know is our dry kibble has very, very little moisture in it. I get people all the time asking me about finding dry foods with more moisture, and the problem with that is dry foods run between 9 and 14% typically moisture content. The reason why they can't be much higher is because they're going to mold faster on the shelves with that extra moisture content within them. And people come in looking for foods that have more moisture content, and some foods will say they have moist bits. And it's kind of misleading because if you really do look at the moisture content of that bag of dry food, it's going to be 9 to 14%, usually mostly around 10. I very, very rarely see pet foods in the stores with higher than 10% moisture. I would say probably 60 to 80% are going to be 10% moisture. Most of the lower quality brands I have noticed have higher moisture content, but then again, they're low quality brands and we don't want to be using those. So why is it that moisture is important in our foods? Well, our dogs and cats are usually walking around dehydrated all the time, believe it or not. I get customers to say, well, my dog and cat drink so much water, I don't worry about them. Well, in fact, yes, I have 2 dogs, and one of my dogs drinks water like you wouldn't believe. The other one drinks it when she needs it. But that doesn't mean the dog that drinks a lot of water is hydrated. If you think about it, humans get a lot of what they need for moisture through what we eat, and those that don't are dehydrated and more susceptible to health issues. And so are our pets. Too many people out there don't realize the importance of moisture. And our dogs and cats are walking around majority of the time dehydrated. So here is a few things that we can do to rectify the situation. Canned foods. Canned foods are, depending on the company, 78 to 82% moisture. By adding a little canned food a day to the diet, you're adding more moisture content. And this can offset some of the lack of moisture that our dry foods have in them. So the only issue I see with canned foods, and it's not all dogs and all cats, but it's a majority of them, dogs view canned food as a treat. Some cats do also. We, as humans, know it's a food. That's why it's called canned food. But our dogs and pets, are very treat-based animals, meaning they like rewards for pleasing us. We teach them to sit. We give them a treat. We teach them to go potty outside as puppies. We give them a treat. To lay down, we give them a treat. Sometimes go in their kennel, we give them a treat. We treat for outcomes that we want because that is teaching the dogs. And that is awesome because dogs are very treat-based animals. However, a lot of us don't realize that when we give them canned food, they are viewing this as a treat. Therefore, some dogs love their dry kibble. They scarf it down like crazy. And then you come along and start adding and mixing in canned foods to their dinners or breakfasts or both. And what happens is, without you knowing, that dog just said, hey, I got rewarded by eating my food. I liked my food already, but now I'm getting rewarded for eating my food. And then down the line, for whatever reason, maybe you cut back on canned foods. You don't add as much of it to the dry foods anymore. And what happens is, even though the dogs and some cats love the dry food, they walk over to that dry food, won't eat it because now they say to themselves, where's my treat? And at the end of the day, that can become a huge problem. So my suggestion is, if you want to add canned food to the diet because you are worried about the moisture content in your dry food, is treat your canned food like a treat. Designate an old bowl, an old plate as the canned food bowl or plate, and feed them their normal dry kibble at their normal scheduled times. But with the canned food, you're putting it in a different item. It's not in their dog food bowl. And put this item in a different spot. If you feed in the kitchen, have the dry food on one side of the kitchen. When you use the canned food as a little treat, you put it on the other side of the kitchen. This will allow the animal to realize that it's a treat and it's not added to my food. I'm not being rewarded for eating, and therefore we can avoid some of those picky animals out there that become so hooked on the canned food they won't eat their dry food. Now, you don't necessarily have to add a lot of canned food to the dog's diet. Basically, think of it as a treat, as a supplement. You can get 3-4 days out of one 12.5-ounce can. If it's a cat food and you use a 3-ounce can, divide it in half, and that's two feedings. So that's, Monday, Tuesday. If it's a 12.5-ounce of canned food, even if you have a 50-pound, 60-pound dog, divide it in a third. So that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's 3 feedings. That's a nice way to supplement some extra moisture into the food without breaking the bank, because some people read the general guidelines on the side of the cans, and depending on your dog, you have to feed, like my dogs are 55 pounds, I have to feed 3.5 cans of food a day. But they're expecting you to be just doing the dog canned foods as food. They're not accounting for the extra calories and the content you may be doing in dry food. So if you're just going to use the canned food as a treat, aka a supplement to get more moisture in the diet, you don't need to follow those guidelines. The other thing you can do, if you don't like to do canned food, some people don't like the smell of them, some dogs don't like them. You have to find what works for your animals. Cats and dogs are a lot like humans with our palates. Some like chunky stuff, some like the pate, some like flaked. They like all different kinds of textures. Some won't eat certain types of textures. So find out what canned foods work for your animals best. If you're finding that nothing as far as canned foods will work for your animal, and you're still worried about the moisture content in our pet foods, the next best thing to do is add a little bit of lukewarm water to your dog's dry food. I wouldn't do this at every feeding. I would do this just a little bit maybe in the morning, or if it's a very, very hot day, afternoon. I prefer morning to get the dog's moisture content up high before it does get hot. And with doing the water, you're now adding more moisture content to the food. Therefore, your dog is less dehydrated. And why is all this important? So moisture is important because if you put aside genetic problems that are passed down, if you put aside some of the dry foods are lower quality that can contribute to some of these issues, the moisture content is key, because a lot of dogs and cats have kidney issues, stone issues, and urinary tract issues. By adding more moisture to the diet and keeping the dog's hydration up, you are now having a higher percentage of chance to prevent those issues. It doesn't mean you will, but you're just improving your chances of avoiding it. Now, the other issue with doing more water or canned food is we don't want to take away a lot of dry food from the animal. The reason is that canned foods are soft. They're going to build up plaque. They're going to weaken the teeth over time, because your dog and cat need to work their teeth to keep them strong. So you really do want them to have a dry food to keep those teeth healthy. So once again, add some water or canned food, whatever works best for your animal, separately if you can. And at the end of the day, this is why moisture content is a very key thing to look for. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you want to hear more from us, please like our Facebook page at Happy Tales Naturals. We also, on our Facebook page, have a message link. You can direct message us with ideas or questions that you want answered for future shows. We have a lot planned coming up, and if you do like us, please share us. We're trying to reach as much of an audience as possible. And have a great Thursday.